Chapter 41. Duty. There's something wrong with this throwing dagger. A voice suddenly sounded. A boy with messy hair ran to the tree and stared at the iron throwing dagger that had nailed down the snake's head. He shouted in surprise, "Come over and take a look. The force behind this throwing dagger is very special. It's like a bullet hitting an object, the cracks are irregularly spread." Enough. Shu Nianxiang cut him off sternly in a low voice. "Student, it's dangerous there. Move away quickly." I'm fine. The boy waved his hand and shouted, "This venomous snake is already dead. What's important now is the throwing dagger. Hey, what are you doing? Don't pull me, let me go." The boy struggled but could not do anything to the two guards who dragged him away. "I'm sorry, please excuse him." On the other side, Lin Shurun smiled awkwardly and said, "This child, he's become silly from studying." It's fine. Fan Chunggong raised his hand and said understandingly, "Earnest people deserve respect. Don't you agree, Brother Yang?" He turned to look at Su Jingxing. Su Jingxing ignored him and bid farewell to Lin Shurun and Shu Nianxiang. "Professor Lin, Team Leader Shu, I still have something on. I shall not intrude further." "Hey, wait up." Lin Shurun stopped him and quickly said, "Brother Yang, you haven't left your contact details." "No need." Su Jingxing waved his hand and strode away. Saving Wang Hanpeng was a casual act, and he had never thought of repayment. He only used an ordinary throwing dagger. Su Jingxing did not expect that his casual move would attract Fan Chunggong's attention. It seems that this fellow has seen Chen Xiaodao use the colossal divine dagger before. He was sarcastic and found faults from the beginning. It was impossible for Su Jingxing not to think deeper into it. After all, Su Jingxing had never seen Fan Chunggong before today. It was even more impossible for Fan Chunggong to know Yang Jian. In the end, at their first meeting, Fan Chunggong had revealed a provocative intent, clearly targeting him. This could only be directed at throwing daggers, nothing else. So, there is a high chance that Fan Chunggong knows Chen Xiaodao. Su Jingxing pondered as he walked on the slope. After Su Jingxing left, Lin Shurun did not stay here any longer. He called for everyone to head to the next location. After Wang Hanpeng's accident, Shu Nianxiang became even more guarded. Lin Shurun also reminded everyone to pay attention to their surroundings. The guards patrolled back and forth amongst the crowd. Fan Chunggong's security team was in charge of movements at the front, back and periphery, just in case. The team of more than 30 people formed a long line on the mountain path. Shu Nianxiang was at the very front, in charge of leading the way, occasionally peering through binoculars. All of a sudden, a guard walked up to Shu Nianxiang and whispered, "Team leader, Fan Chunggong is missing." Shu Nianxiang raised an eyebrow. "How so?" Six saw him leave the group and enter the forest. He disappeared in the direction that Brother Yang left in, the guard replied softly. "Ha!" Shu Nianxiang scoffed. "I knew he wouldn't be able to hold back." "Team leader, we ignore him," Shu Nianxiang said coolly. "What Fan Chunggong wants has nothing to do with us." "But Brother Yang won't be killed so easily." Shu Nianxiang smiled. "Think about it. If he didn't have the capabilities, would he have dared to enter Green Cloud Mountain alone?" "That's right." The guard was first enlightened, but a thought quickly struck him and he said in a low voice, "The problem is Fan Chunggong. He's a 7th grade martial artist. Can Brother Yang handle him?" "I don't know." Shu Nianxiang wore a calm expression. The guard was dumbfounded. "I really don't know." Shu Nianxiang raised an eyebrow. "I've never seen Brother Yang in action before. I don't know what realm he's in, but his throwing dagger skill is enough for him to retreat easily even if he's no match for a 7th rank martial artist." Fan Chunggong could tell that Su Jingxing's throwing dagger was extraordinary, so how could Shu Nianxiang not? Even though he did not know that it was the colossal divine dagger. He only managed to catch the last step of the entire process from the moment Su Jingxing acted to when he hit his target, yet he could tell that Su Jingxing's skill in throwing daggers was extremely profound. This sort of throwing dagger skill, even the most ordinary dart throwing technique, was enough to threaten a 7th grade martial artist. Su Jingxing was so young, yet he already had such attainments in hidden weapons. How could he be as simple as he appeared on the surface? If Fan Chunggong wanted to take advantage of the situation, he would probably suffer. The forest was dense and the mountain path was steep. The man-made mountain path was barely visible against the weeds and shrubs that grew day and night. The danger lurking beneath the bushes and weeds hovered day and night. But they didn't affect Su Jingxing much. With advanced hearing in use, Su Jingxing could hear all sounds within 100 meters. Even if an ant was crawling on the ground, Su Jingxing would know where it was. He moved, scaring away all sorts of dangers in advance. It was as if he was on a vacation. Until he heard a familiar heartbeat behind him. He really followed me here. Su Jingxing grinned and stopped in his tracks. He turned around and said calmly, since you're here, come out. Hiding doesn't seem like the style of a manager. Ha. Fan Chunggong stepped out from behind a tree and looked at Su Jingxing. He smiled and said, Brother Yang, what sharp intuition. You discovered me so quickly. May I know why Manager Fan is looking for me? Su Jingxing was too lazy to argue with him and went straight to the point. Can't I look for you for a chat for no reason? Fan Chunggong grinned. After all, you saved a student previously, which was considered to have helped me out. I chased after you to thank you. Of course you can. Su Jingxing smiled. As for your gratitude, I've accepted it. I'll walk the rest of the way myself. Manager Fan, you can go back now. That won't do. Fan Chunggong shook his head. Brother Yang, you are our savior. It is my duty to help you. By the way, I still do not know why Brother Yang is in the mountains. Do tell me. With me, we should be able to complete it faster. Thank you for your kindness, Manager Fan, but there's no need. Su Jingxing said calmly, I take care of my own matters. On the other hand, Manager Fan, you're here for a task. You'd better go back and escort Professor Lin and the rest. With that, he turned around and left quickly. Wait. Fan Chunggong continued to chase after him. My colleagues are doing that. As for me, it won't be too late to return after I send you to your destination. As he spoke, he increased his speed. Su Jingxing ignored him and sped up while remaining vigilant. Fan Chunggong sped up as well. Su Jingxing turned the corner, and Fan Chunggong followed. Su Jingxing went down the mountain, and Fan Chunggong followed. In short, no matter where Su Jingxing went, Fan Chunggong was determined to follow him. At first, Su Jingxing was annoyed, but soon, Fan Chunggong became the one who was annoyed. He realized that he could not catch up. This made Fan Chunggong extremely angry. He finally shed all pretense and attacked. Swoosh. A diamond-shaped dart flew out from Fan Chunfeng's palm and headed straight for Su Jingxing. Swish. The sound of rapid wind, accompanied by icy killing intent, enveloped Su Jingxing's back. Su Jingxing, who was running, sensed it immediately and dodged the sneak attack. Then, he stopped and turned to look at Fan Chunggong. You want to kill me? Su Jingxing remained calm and said coldly, you will kill me just because I refused your help. Alright, cut the pretense. Fan Chunggong's face darkened, his eyes spitting fire. Since we've already fallen out, I don't want to waste any more words. Let me ask you something. Did you take Chen Xiaodao's colossal divine dagger? You have guessed correctly. Su Jingxing thought inwardly but remained collected on the surface. What colossal divine dagger? Hey, still putting on an act. Fan Chunggong sneered. Do you think I wouldn't know if you refused to admit it? Others might not know the method of exerting force, the angle of striking, and the diffusion of force of the colossal divine dagger, but I know it very well. Because Chen Xiaodao stole the colossal divine dagger from me. Before he practiced throwing daggers, I was already extremely familiar with this hidden weapon. So, Su Jingxing was calm. So, this hidden weapon should be returned to its original owner now. Fan Chunggong shouted as he threw another diamond-shaped dart. Swish, swish, swish. This time, there were as many as 3 diamond-shaped darts. Each one was aimed at Su Jingxing's vital parts at an extremely tricky angle. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Su Jingxing's body swayed as he used the 8-step rising dragon beneath his feet. In a few flashes, he easily dodged. After regaining his balance, he looked at Fan Chunggong, who had an ugly expression on his face, and said with a chuckle, this is also the colossal divine dagger, right? Oh, no, this should be called light body dart. That's right. Fan Chunggong's darts had the exact same method of force exertion and change in trajectories as the colossal divine dagger. However, the might was much weaker. Su Jingxing was starting to believe Fan Chunggong's account. The colossal divine dagger could really have been snatched by Chen Xiaodao. Fan Chunggong had practiced this hidden weapon before, but because he did not have unusual strength, he could not master it successfully. Therefore, he switched to darts and only retained the method of exerting force from the colossal divine dagger. There were many similar situations. For example, applying sword techniques to sabers. If one were to cultivate a sword technique as a saber art, it wouldn't be weak either. It may seem perfect, but in reality, such martial arts have already changed. They have become neither fish nor fowl. Unless it was a talented and knowledgeable genius who could strip away the old and create his own martial arts. Only by comprehending saber techniques from sword techniques would the martial arts attained have made further progress. Was Fan Chunggong such a person? Obviously not. Therefore, his dart skill was very awkward in Su Jingxing's eyes. As for Fan Chunfeng, he thought that he had concealed himself well and that no one would be able to tell. Even Wan Rong, whom he served, never knew. At this moment, Su Jingxing had laid it bare in front of him. The shame and anger in his heart erupted. You're not willing to hand it over, are you? Then I'll take it myself. Swish, swish, swish. Fan Chunggong roared and waved his hands, releasing more than 10 diamond-shaped darts in an attempt to drown Su Jingxing with the numbers. At the same time, he stomped on the ground. Moving like lightning, he charged at Su Jingxing with 2 curved blades in his hands. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Su Jingxing's figure flashed repeatedly as he moved to the right, avoiding the diamond-shaped darts. He no longer held back against Fan Chunggong, who was pouncing over. Whiz, whiz, whiz. Throwing daggers, 3 throwing daggers flew out in succession to meet Fan Chunggong. In an instant, the sound of rushing wind suddenly intensified. They tore through the air like cannonballs, leaving their shells. The strange flying angle seemed straight, but was ever changing. One second it was on the left, the next it was on the right. However, the trajectory in his vision never changed. It was seemingly false and real at the same time. Fan Chunggong felt dizzy at once. His heart raced. Danger. The alarm bells in Fan Chunggong's head rang. There was no time to dodge, so he instinctively brandished his dual sabers to block in front of him. Thud. A muffled sound. Pooh. Fan Chunggong spat out a mouthful of blood as his arms turned numb. He could not stop himself from stepping backwards. The 2 curved blades in his hands, however, had already turned into a pile of fragments with a loud bang, scattering in the air. Under the sunlight, the blade fragments were bright and dazzling. As Fan Chunggong retreated, a throwing dagger appeared in his vision. The second throwing dagger. The first of the throwing daggers that were imbued with immense power had crushed the curved blades, and the residual force pushed Fan Chunggong back. The second throwing dagger, which was following closely behind, came straight at Fan Chunggong's chest, hitting him hard. Thud. Bang. Crack. Ah. Fresh blood spurted out from Fan Chunggong's mouth, splattering everywhere. Most of the bones in his chest were broken, and the clothes on his body turned into countless pieces along with a thin inner armor. In midair. Boom. The third throwing daggers pierced through his chest, leaving behind a gaping hole. It pierced through Fan Chunggong and headed straight for the towering trees behind him. Bang, bang, bang. Muffled sounds were heard continuously. Under the aggression from the residual force of the third throwing dagger, the ancient trees exploded, broke, and collapsed one after another. The 100-meter-tall humongous trunks toppled over in every possible direction and crashed onto the nearby trees, letting out a series of rumbles. Countless birds were roused. They flew out of the forest and fled in all directions. The quiet mountain peak became extremely lively. There were birds in the sky, flying all over the place. There were beasts running everywhere. Of course, all of this was getting further and further away from Fan Chunfeng. He was lying on the ground, a huge hole in his chest. Facing the sky, fresh blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth without end. His trembling body quickly lost its vitality. The final life in his widened eyes shone as he stared fixedly at Su Jingxing, who was approaching. You didn't see wrongly. This is the real colossal divine dagger. Su Jingxing began calmly. Didn't you want it to return to its original owner? I thought about it and felt that you were right. Hey, don't die so quickly. Su Jingxing sneered and shook his head as he looked at Fan Chunggong, who had died with a grievance. He followed him all the way and forced him to attack. Great, there's no need for you to run around anymore. Su Jingxing's arms now had 8,000 catties of strength. Coupled with the colossal divine dagger, the might released was no different from a cannonball. Although Fan Chunggong was prepared, dual blades, inner armor and all, he was still pierced through the chest and back by the third dagger. Deader than dead. A 7th-grade martial artist doesn't not seem like much. Su Jingxing criticized in his heart. He opened his backpack and took out the corpse-dissolving liquid, preparing to destroy all traces to prevent attracting the corpse-raising devil insect egg. Corpse discovered. Would you like to extract it? A notification flashed across his mind. Su Jingxing smiled and replied inwardly, yes. The next moment, a card appeared in his pocket. Su Jingxing took it out and read the information. He realized that it was actually a memory card. Another new card. As the name suggested, the memory card contains the memories of the deceased. As for the duration, it was random. Some may be years, some may only be months, while some may even be a lifetime. The experiences of the deceased's lifetime were recorded in the memory card. The memory card Su Jingxing picked up contained 10 years of Fan Chunggong's memories. The moment Su Jingxing unlocked the card, the images of Fan Chunggong's 10 years of life played in his mind like a movie. Su Jingxing clearly saw everything that Fan Chunggong had done in the past 10 years. It included the parts of Chen Xiaodao and the colossal divine dagger. The memory showed that the colossal divine dagger was not snatched by Chen Xiaodao from Fan Chunggong, but was an exchange between the two of them. Chen Xiaodao had a martial art, the Three Origins Saber Art. He gave this saber art in exchange for Fan Chunggong's colossal divine dagger. And both the colossal divine dagger and three origin saber art were items that Chen Xiaodao and Fan Chunggong had seized from another person. It was a dark memory. Fan Chunggong, Chen Xiaodao, as well as their buddy, accidentally learned from a group of grave robbers that there was a martial arts expert's tomb at a certain place. Such a tomb that was passed down from ancient times had an 80% chance of containing good items as burial items. After all, it had only been 80 years since the extraterrestrial devil insect had descended on Earth's star. The tomb from 100 years ago was not dug up by anyone. That was because corpses that were over 100 years old had all rotted to the point where all that was left were bone dregs. The corpse-raising devil insect egg wouldn't visit at all. Therefore, tombs that were more than 100 years old were still buried under the ground. Before anyone discovered them, no one knew what was inside. When Chen Xiaodao, Fan Chunggong, and their friend learned of this news, they killed the group of grave robbers and went to the tomb themselves to search for burial items. In the end, they weren't disappointed. They really found quite a few good items. The most precious were the colossal divine dagger and the three origin saber art. It was also because of these two martial arts that Chen Xiaodao and Fan Chunggong sneaked an attack on their buddy from behind. After that, they split the burial items. 2 martial arts techniques, one for each of them. However, after obtaining the martial arts, the two of them realized that both the colossal divine dagger and the three origin saber art had preconditions for a successful cultivation. Needless to say, the colossal divine dagger required a martial artist to have great strength. The three origin saber art was even more bizarre. One had to wield 3 sabers during the cultivation. It was not 2 sabers in one hand, but one in each. In other words, one had to have 3 hands to cultivate this saber art. Wasn't this a scam? There were indeed people with 3 hands, but they were deformed and not normal people. Such people were considered inauspicious in ancient times and would be drowned once they were born. Modern people were not afraid. Surgery would take care of the defects. So, there was no one who reached adulthood with 3 hands. Therefore, Fan Chunggong, who was initially given the colossal divine dagger, had a big fight with Chen Xiaodao after he swindled Chen Xiaodao into giving him the three origin saber art in exchange. The two of them then severed ties. Although the colossal divine dagger was difficult to master and there was only the first volume available, its method of exerting force can be applied on darts. The three origin saber art was completely a decoration, only to be admired and not to be consumed. It would be strange if Fan Chunggong could accept it. He wanted to find an opportunity to kill Chen Xiaodao, but Chen Xiaodao was not any weaker than him. Furthermore, Chen Xiaodao quickly pulled the Black Tiger Gang as his backing. As such, Fan Chunggong could only hold it in until the news of Chen Xiaodao's death came. Only then did he laugh heartily. Afterwards, Fan Chunggong specially went to Chen Xiaodao's house to search for the colossal divine dagger, but found nothing. Unexpectedly, on a trip into the mountain, he saw that Su Jingxing's throwing daggers had traces of the colossal divine dagger. He gave chase and interrogated him. This experience was the most unique in the 10 years of memory. For Fan Chunggong, murder and arson, sleeping with women, robbing, and plotting to kill people were normal business. Correspondingly, as Wan Rong's trusted aide, Fan Chunggong knew most of Wan Rong's secrets. Su Jingxing gained the most from these secrets. Apart from that, Fan Chunggong had a sum of dirty money, about 3 million Great Yu dollars, which he had secretly stashed away. No one knew about this money, and now it was Su Jingxing's. It happened that Su Jingxing had used up the 3 custom-made throwing daggers that he used to kill Fan Chunfeng. He was planning to buy a few more. Altogether, the effects of the memory card were not inferior to that of other cards. The only bad thing about this 10-year memory was that it only recorded a small portion of Fan Chunggong's memory of the three origin saber art. Or rather, Fan Chunggong only read the beginning's contents of the saber art before throwing it into the safe. He did not flip through it again. After that. Wait. Suddenly, Su Jingxing was shocked. A thought struck him and his eyes lit up. That's right. Fan Chunggong tossed the three origin saber art into the safe and stopped caring about it. Doesn't that mean that as long as I go to his house, take away the safe, or open it, I can get the three origin saber art? Su Jingxing, who finally realized this as an afterthought, was overjoyed. Unlike Chen Xiaodao, whose belongings have long been taken away. So far, no one knows that Fan Chunggong has died in my hands. As long as I return earlier, I could go to Fan Chunggong's residence and open the safe without anyone knowing. Then, I can easily obtain the three origin saber art. Since it could be placed alongside the colossal divine dagger as a burial item, the three origin saber art certainly won't be inferior. Fan Chunggong and Chen Xiaodao could not cultivate this saber art, but it does not mean that Su Jingxing cannot. With this in mind, Su Jingxing collected his thoughts and opened the bottle of corpse-dissolving liquid, turning Fan Chunggong's corpse into a pool of liquid. Then, he rushed to the location where the muyan flower grew. In a hidden valley. The entrance was a cliff. One could only reach the valley by passing through a river below the cliff, and entering a subterranean river. The reason why the person who leaked the information knew this so well was because he was knocked off the cliff by someone and survived by a stroke of luck. He followed the river, passed through the valley, and came out from another subterranean river. That was how he escaped death. While moving, he spotted some of the things growing in the valley, which included the muyan flower. As for why he posted this experience online, Su Jingxing wasn't clear. Perhaps he was showing off, perhaps he was deliberately luring people there, or perhaps he was doing it for revenge. In short, that had helped Su Jingxing. Rushing at top speed, Su Jingxing managed to reach the peak where the cliff was before nightfall. It was inconvenient to move at night. Hence, Su Jingxing spent the night on the mountain and waited by the cliff. He found a large tree as a temporary lodging and sat himself on a thick branch. He casually took out an essence energy pill and ate it to recover his stamina and keep his mind clear. Then he ate some food to fill his stomach. It was about time. He activated his internal force to stimulate his eyes and started developing his night vision ability. As he worked, a feeling suddenly hit Su Jingxing and he stopped using the secret ability. Someone was peeking at him. There was someone nearby. After his soul power increased, Su Jingxing became more sensitive to other people's gazes and attention. Was it kind or malicious? Was it mockery or praise? He could feel it without meeting the other person's eyes. For example, right now, the person who was secretly watching him did not have any ill intentions. As such, Su Jingxing didn't get up immediately. Instead, he maintained his original position with composure. After waiting for a while, the other party was still peeping. He decided not to tolerate it anymore. Even if the other party did not have any ill intentions, being stared at like that made him feel uneasy. Swoosh. With a flash of his figure, Su Jingxing used the 8 steps rising dragon and flew among the treetops. He stepped on one tree after another and rushed towards the direction of the gaze with lightning speed. Flap. All of a sudden, the sound of flapping wings was heard. In the dark forest, a snow-white bird abruptly flew out, flapping its wings and soaring into the night sky. How is that possible? Su Jingxing's pupils constricted as he stopped on top of a large tree. He looked at the snow-white bird that was rapidly flying into the distance as astonishment emerged on his face. What was peeking at me wasn't a human, but a big bird. A giant bird with a humanized gaze. After Su Jingxing recovered from his shock, his gaze became strange. He was shocked not because the bird had a humanized gaze, but because this spiritual bird dared to approach him. That's right, a spiritual bird. Also called a mutated beast, a spiritual beast. An animal that had gained sentience. Before the extraterrestrial devil insect descended on Earth's star, mutated beasts were extremely rare. They were usually only found in perilous lands and polar regions. Moreover, every mutated beast had innate divine powers. Some of them were even quite terrifying, no weaker than natural disasters. However, because they were few in number, they were not too dangerous. But over 80 years ago, after the arrival of the extraterrestrial devil insect, the beast spirit devil insect among them turned this situation upside down. That was because the beast spirit devil insect could release a special kind of energy that could infect animals and turn them into mutated beasts. Just like the corpse-raising devil insect, it only targeted human corpses and turned them into corpse puppets. The beast spirit devil insect targeted vertebrates. There were no spineless beasts, at least not yet. Even so, the sudden increase in various kinds of mutated beasts caused beast tides on Earth's star. More than 100 cities were breached by the beast tides, and humans suffered innumerable casualties. As a result, corpse tides and beast tides were listed as calamities at the level of natural disasters. Everyone's expression would change at the mention of them. The reason for this was that even though the mutated beasts had developed sentience, most of them were still controlled by their beastly and wild nature. The bloodthirsty desires of the beasts remained and they killed mercilessly. It was normal for humans to eat beasts. Of course it was also justified for beasts to eat humans then. Originally, no matter how ferocious a wild beast was, it would be no match for a human. However, under the command of the intelligent mutated beasts, when a beast tide was activated, even the first-grade experts could only escape. Of course, not all of the mutated beasts wished to kill and eat up the human race. For a fraction of the mutated beasts, their intelligence had suppressed their beastly nature, so they did not have much malice towards humans. As long as humans do not provoke them, these mutated beasts would stay far away. This group of mutated beasts were thus known as spiritual beasts. As for those beastly and wild mutated beasts, they were named savage beasts. Savage beasts would attack humans once they see them. On the contrary, spiritual beasts would move away. However, if someone could gain the approval of a spiritual beast, they would gain a great deal of help. Such spiritual beasts were also known as combat beasts and spiritual pets. Compared to the savage beasts, the spiritual beasts were fewer in numbers. Correspondingly, there were even fewer spiritual pets. The uniqueness of spiritual pets made everyone, be it ordinary people or martial artists, want them. However, there were pitifully few people who actually possessed them. Even in Qinghai City's population of more than 10 million, the number of people who owned spiritual pets could be counted on one hand. Wei Jiajia had asked for a spiritual pet as one of her requests, but Su Jingxing rebutted her. Want a spiritual pet? Me too. This not only depended on luck. One also had to have strong charisma. Earning the approval of a spiritual beast would be wishful thinking without some charisma. Of course, many had tried to forcefully tame them, but they rarely succeeded. On the other hand, many savage beasts were forcefully suppressed and tamed. Su Jingxing did not expect to encounter a spiritual bird the first time he entered the Green Cloud Mountain. This big bird even hid in a dark corner and watched him. If he was someone who was extremely charismatic, it might even take the initiative to come closer. That doesn't seem right. If that's the case, doesn't that mean that I have zero charm? The corner of Su Jingxing's lips twitched. He would never admit such a thing. The spiritual bird had probably peeked at him out of curiosity. Perhaps it was its first time seeing a human. Then, Su Jingxing discovered it and his behavior was suspected to be an intention to capture it. Naturally, it fled. The probability of seeing it again is almost zero. At this thought, Su Jingxing felt a little depressed. He returned to his earlier position and meditated for a while before recovering his calm. At the end of the day, the spiritual bird is just an accidental encounter. What is important is to grasp what is available right now. With this thought in mind, Su Jingxing relaxed and continued to develop his night vision. The night passed quickly. Early the next morning, Su Jingxing ate an essence energy pill and went to the cliff. He opened his backpack and put on his equipment. A pair of steel claws. It was very simple. He would rely on the sharpness of the steel claws to climb the cliff. Su Jingxing didn't plan to jump off the cliff and take the water route, pass the subterranean river, and enter the valley like what the post on the internet said. He wasn't really that stupid to believe whatever the informant said. Part of the reason he came to look for the Muyan flower was to complete the deal. The second reason was to familiarize himself with 8-step rising dragon. It was too dangerous to take the water route. Especially since he had to pass through the subterranean river, no one knew what was inside. But going by the cliff would be no problem. Su Jingxing had confidence in himself. Even without true energy, the 8 steps rising dragon lightness skill would allow him to walk along the cliff like a gecko. Yes, it could be said that his dream had been realized. He could leap over roofs and walk on walls. The face of a truly steep cliff. The steel claws were for leverage, just in case. If Su Jingxing really ran out of energy midway, he would have a backup plan. True Energy card. After unlocking the True Chi card, he immediately soared into the sky. Su Jingxing had thought about all the possible consequences before coming here. The timing was bad last night, but there would be no problem during the day. Right now, after Su Jingxing put on his equipment, he employed the 8-step rising dragon and ran along the cliff. The cliff stood upright on the ground, and Su Jingxing was running left and right on it. His body was almost parallel to the ground. Only when he felt that his strength had decreased would he use his steel claws to grab the protruding points on the cliff and take a short break. After resting, he continued running. From the sky, Su Jingxing was even faster than a gecko. Following the cliff and the river below, he continued deeper into the Green Cloud Mountain range. This continued until the river below entered the ground. There was no way to continue following it. In front of Su Jingxing, a steep cliff thousands of meters tall with an unknown length appeared. What to do? Climb over. Su Jingxing, who was hanging on the cliff, rested for a moment before continuing to run. However, this time, he was going upwards. He raced up the steep cliff face. For a height of 1,000 meters, Su Jingxing rested 3 times in between before successfully climbing up to the peak. Standing at the very top of the cliff, he was greeted by a cool breeze. His field of vision suddenly widened. In front of him was a vast sea of clouds floating among the peaks. It covered the scenery behind the cliff and also blocked the view from the sky. No one knew what lay at the center of the mountain range. He could only feel a rich sense of vitality rushing towards him. Worldly energy. For the first time, Su Jingxing clearly felt a wave of energy swimming in the world. This was something he had not felt on the way here. Not to mention in Qinghai City where all sorts of auras were mixed. Huff. He took a deep breath and calmed the excitement in his heart. Su Jingxing removed his steel claws and ate an essence energy pill to keep himself awake and ensure he had ample energy. Then, he put on his steel claws again and quickly scanned the peak of the mountain before running to the right. After running for some distance, he began to descend the mountain. Following a steep slope that sloped downwards, he used the 8-step rising dragon. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Hoo, hoo, hoo. A cool breeze blew and there was a sweet fragrance in the air. It was the fragrance from mature herbs and delicacies. Su Jingxing took a deep breath and felt a lot more refreshed. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Heading straight down, Su Jingxing soon disappeared into the sea of clouds. Of course, in Su Jingxing's vision, the scenery behind the cliff became clearer and clearer. Through the thin mist, he could see a faintly discernible valley ahead. As he ran, when the steep slope reached its end, Su Jingxing could already see the valley clearly. All kinds of precious flowers and plants could be seen everywhere. They were colorful and resplendent. A large forest was close to the left side of the cliff. It was verdant and lush, with birds flying in the air. Under the stimulation of the rich vitality, small animals ran and jumped around in the sea of flowers. A river a dozen feet wide meandered, flowing past the western edge of the valley. The fragrant aroma lingered in the valley with the cool breeze. What a hidden paradise. The informant wasn't lying. At the very least, the worldly energy in this valley was extremely rich. It wasn't strange that heavenly treasures like the Muyan flower had appeared. Only such a place could satisfy the growth of heavenly treasures. Su Jingxing stood at the end of the steep slope and retracted his gaze after a while. Next, he continued to execute the 8-step rising dragon and ran down along the mountain face. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Hoo, hoo, hoo. Moving down was much easier than climbing up. After a while, Su Jingxing left the mountain face and stood in a sea of flowers. Su Jingxing activated his secret ability, advanced hearing and listened for any movements within 100 meters. He then walked straight to the west of the river. According to the informant, the Muyan flower grew near the river. Otherwise, he would not have spotted it. This valley was huge. There was a sea of flowers, a lawn, and a small forest in between. Therefore, it was impossible to know what heavenly treasures were in the valley without walking around personally. Su Jingxing's first target was the Muyan flower, so he naturally headed straight to the river. However, as he walked, he suddenly raised his hand and threw out an ordinary iron-throwing dagger. Swish. Hoo. Amidst the sound of rushing wind, the head of a colorful snake that was hiding in the grass and quietly approaching Su Jingxing exploded. Swish. A throwing dagger knife was flung backward. PLKCH tilde. An exceptionally large bee the size of an adult's palm exploded. Swish. The sound of rushing wind swept across the sea of flowers. A huge frog the size of a washbasin, covered in poisonous tumors, had a massive hole in its chest. Swish. 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 As Su Jingxing walked on, throwing daggers were launched. All of the poisonous creatures that attempted to approach Su Jingxing or launch sneak attacks died miserably. By the time Su Jingxing walked out of the small forest, a dozen poisonous creatures lay dead on both sides of the path. The clear and spacious river ahead was in plain sight. It was at this moment that Su Jingxing caught sight of a novel battle. There was a pig and a goose. The pig was a wild boar. No, to be precise, it was a mutated boar. This was because it was too big, twice the size of an adult ox. Its enormous body was covered in crimson scales, and at first glance, it looked like the Qilin 1. Its 4 thick limbs had the ground rumbling as it ran. A pair of curved and sharp tusks protruded from the corner of its mouth, revealing itself in the air, making one feel fearful and wary. Such a wild boar was clearly a mutated beast. As for the goose, it was also big in size, more than a meter tall, its entire body was snow white. At first glance, it looked like a common big white goose. At the second glance, it looked like a beautiful swan. At the third glance, well, this was no goose, but a fierce fighting chicken. It was too aggressive. Despite the huge difference in size between the two beasts, the white goose was not afraid of the red-scaled porcupine at all. That's right, Su Jingxing recalled that this mutated wild boar was called the red-scaled porcupine. It was a type of savage beast. Whether the white goose fighting against it was a savage beast or spiritual beast was unknown for the time being. In any case, it was very fierce because it could fly. This alone did not match the characteristics of an ordinary big white goose. The white goose flapping around the red-scaled porcupine from time to time was extremely ferocious. However, the red-scaled porcupine's defense was too strong. The white goose's attack could not break through the red scales. Not even a white mark was left behind. The only spot where the goose could threaten the red-scaled porcupine was its eyes. In the face of the white goose's frenzied attack on its eyes, the red-scaled porcupine, which had been running back and forth and circling around for a long time, suddenly dropped to the ground and closed its eyes. It raised its thick forelimbs and covered its head, leaving itself at the mercy of the white goose. The white goose was dumbfounded. The red-scaled porcupine's move was very effective. If the white goose could not break through its defense, no amount of aggressiveness would work. Su Jingxing didn't know what its innate divine power was. But the red-scaled porcupine's talent was clearly its body, its defense was invincible. What was it for the white goose? If it did not have a specific divine power, it would not be able to do anything to the red-scaled porcupine. Further developments also proved this. The berserk white goose jumped around on the red-scaled porcupine's hill-like body and attacked everyone, but it had only tickled the red-scaled porcupine. At the end, the white goose had no choice but to give up. It flapped its wings dejectedly and flew across the river. The red-scaled porcupine waited for a moment. After making sure that the white goose had left, it stood up with a snort and looked across the river with its huge head. Its red eyes were filled with mockery. That smug expression and arrogant attitude seemed to be saying, "That's it. That's it." Across the river, the white goose honked but did not fly back. Clearly, it knew that it was useless to be angry. Grunt grunt. The red-scaled porcupine was very proud of this. Swinging its tail, it moved its four thick limbs and walked to a sea of flowers by the river. It lowered its head and started to munch. Su Jingxing wanted to continue watching the show, but his gaze suddenly froze as he exclaimed, "Stop those hands. No, stop eating."